Back when our kids were growing up, every summer as soon as school was out, we would pile into the station wagon and we would head north, right straight up through the center of the state of Michigan. After about 4 hours of driving, we would get to the Waters exit, just south of Gaylord. It was there that we would turn off the main highway and we would start down the blacktop. We traveled the blacktop for a couple miles and then the blacktop turned into gravel. We traveled the gravel for a while and finally it turned into dirt. And we followed that dirt road up, around, and through the trees until finally we came to the old, weathered wooden gate. The gate with the 3 wrought iron letters on the top, JJB. Now the JJB stood for Joseph Josiah Blackmore. I never had the opportunity to know the original Joseph Josiah Blackmore, but I knew his son very well. His name was also Joseph Josiah Blackmore, but we called him Grandpa Joe. Now Grandpa Joe had a son, and his name was Joseph Josiah Blackmore, and we call him Jay. You guessed it, Jay has a son, and his name is Joseph Josiah Blackmore. We call him Josh. And now Josh has a son, and we call him Josiah for short. 5 generations of Blackmores coming here to this beautiful spot in the Northland since the early 1940s. We call it Blackmore Eden. Well, as soon as we get to that gate, the kids are out of the car, pushing that gate open, and we go through in our car and down the 2-track. A 2-track is just what it says, 2 tracks, just wide enough to get the car through, with the bracken ferns swishing and swaying on both sides of the car. We travel through the woods and through the trees and down around the bend, and we come to the little wooden bridge that Grandpa Joe made many years ago. This bridge is where we always stop, and we look upstream, and the cattails and the water lilies sort of wave a cheery hello. The mama duck and 6 little ones swim down the stream, and if we're lucky, we see a mink slide in too. We follow that rippling water as it ripples down and it goes into Chub Lake. Now, Chub Lake is just one of many, many lakes and streams around Blackmore Eden. They say that you can canoe all the way to Lake Huron using those streams. Well, I haven't been that far in my canoe, but I have canoed a fair share of the lakes and streams around Blackmore Eden. The time that we really like to canoe is just at dusk, just as the sun is coming down. And then we play this little game with the beavers. We follow in our canoe, and we follow the beavers. We follow them getting just as close as we can until the beaver looks up and slaps his tail on the water and disappears down below. Sometimes the great blue heron flies over. Sometimes, and many times, deer come down and drink at the water's edge. And as we look through that clear water, we saw all kinds of fish, bluegill, wide-mouthed bass, and lots of chubs. I guess that's the reason they call it Chub Lake. Well, we have seen so much wildlife around Blackmore Eden. But until a few years ago, we had never seen a bear. And then one morning, Grandma Blackmore was walking down the path, and she came face to face with a baby bear cub. Now, Grandma is a woman of the woods. She knew what to do. She didn't make any loud noises. She didn't make any loud or movements. She just moseyed very quietly back to the cabin. But when she got into the cabin, she said, I just saw a bear. And of course, we all wanted to see that bear too, and so we all clambered down the path there, and Well, by the time we got there, that bear was long gone. But everybody that came to the cabin that summer heard about Grandma's bear. And everybody looked for Grandma's bear. They looked and looked and looked all summer long, but they never did see Grandma's bear. I think by the end of the summer, people were beginning to wonder whether Grandma had really seen a bear at all. In fact, I think Grandma was beginning to wonder if she'd seen a bear. Well, now, a whole year went by, and we went up to the cabin for another summer. We'd been there several days, and I was out collecting moss for my terrarium back home. And as I was bent down, I had this feeling that somebody was watching me. And I turned around, and the bracken kind of quivered, and out stepped a rather medium-sized bear. Well, I knew what to do. I tiptoed ever so quietly back to the cabin. Now, Grandma Blackmore and my wife Berenice were the only ones there at the time, and so we tiptoed back down that path, and there he was. That bear was right there. He was munching on some berries, and he looked at us, and we looked at him, and then he just scampered off into the woods. But now 3 of us had seen that bear, and Grandma Blackmore said, "I knew I wasn't crazy." Well, everyone that came to the cabin that summer, they looked for Grandma's bear. They looked and looked and looked, but he never did appear again. A whole year went by. We went back up to the cabin. Now, we got there late, and so we got things put away, and we turned in for the night. But in the middle of the night, we heard this tremendous crash out in the other part of the cabin. Berenice poked me and said, "You better go see what that was." And, well, we all went. We turned on the lights. We looked all around, but we couldn't see anything that was out of order. So we just went back to bed. But the next morning when we got up, we were still puzzled. We kept looking, and then we went out on the screened-in back porch, and then we saw the door. This door to the screened porch was kind of hanging there off of the hinges. Well, just about that time, Grandma Blackmore came out, and she said, "Where are my sunflower seeds?" And then we realized she always kept a big tub, a big plastic tub of sunflower seeds there on the porch so that we could feed the birds. She just filled it the day before, and it would have been very heavy, but it was gone. Just completely disappeared. Well, we pushed that screen door apart, and we went outside, and we began to see a trail of sunflower seeds. Those sunflower seeds were going all the way down the path. And so we began to follow. We followed those seeds until it went off in another direction where the bracken was all matted down, and the sunflower seeds kept getting deeper and deeper. We followed, and down at the bottom of the hill, we saw it. Grandma's tub of sunflower seeds. Well, there weren't many sunflower seeds. They were all on the ground, but when we looked at that tub, that plastic tub had big holes on each side of it, just the size of a big bear claws. Well, now we knew what had happened to Grandma's sunflower seeds. We just didn't know whether that bear had carried it up in front of him, he walked down the path, or whether he dragged it behind him. We'll probably never know, but I do know one thing. We keep the sunflower seeds down the basement now. Well, everyone that came to the cabin that summer heard about Grandma's bear and the sunflower seeds. We looked and looked and looked. We looked everywhere, but that bear never did appear. A whole year went by. We went back up to the cabin. We pulled in, and you'll never guess what we saw. Going through the woods, meandering through the woods, was the most beautiful crop of sunflowers you have ever seen. Big, big sunflowers, their faces looking up at the sky like, I guess those sunflowers were just looking for Grandma's baby.